Welcome to the very first Operations and Performance Committee of this triennium and of its existence in the first place. We're going to begin with the prayer and Karakia. So I will read the prayer. E oha ki ronga ki a ranganui, e oha ki raro ki a apatua nuku. Tura kina ngā mea kina ki te pai atia. Uia mai a korowai aroha. He toonga ngā mātou. Ka puta ki te wai o ki te ao marama. Huie, huie, tai kie. I acknowledge and greet those things above the sky, the universe, and the heavens. I acknowledge and greet those things below, the earth in all its entirety. Cast all negativity to the distant horizons. Cover us with the cloak of affection and love as a treasure bestowed upon us, so we may enter into enlightenment. Let it be bound and fixed. Yes, fixed. Let it be agreed by all. And now we are going to sing Erere. We're going to have the words up there and someone will lead us. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to those who participated and those who didn't. Hopefully you get the courage to do so, otherwise we'll have singing lessons. Yeah, you get another opportunity tomorrow morning. Okay, do we have any apologies? Just Michael. Okay, it's Mike Dick. Can we have a mover, please? Thank you, Michael. Can we have a second, please? Thank you, Linda. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Do we have any declarations of interest? No, great. So we'll move into our first item. Oh, sorry. Following instructions. Late item. So we have a resolution that the Operations and Performance Committee receives the following late item: Use Spaces and Places Feasibility Study. And thank you. And who's second? Thank you, Philippa. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so our first item. Over to Johan. Welcome.
Thank you.
And always. Oh, fantastic to see you sitting down there. Welcome. Over to you, Coke.
Good morning, Management Committee members. My name is Yala Shane. With me is Louise Davies today, and we're here to present the 6-month financial and non-financial results for the period ending 31 December. I'm conscious this is the first meeting of this new committee, so I'm going to go through the report in slightly more detail for the benefit of those who are new around the table, and also just get into a bit more detail around that. So today, first of all, I'll talk just a bit about the report format, then I'll talk about the main summary results and some big variances, then we'll open it up for any questions. So if you look at page 8 of the report, we've got, it starts off with summary results with the little dials on that. The purpose of those is to give you a snapshot view of where we are at the moment. First one is the non-financial KPIs, which we're broadly meeting most of those. Looking at the operating results, we're seeing that we're actually tracking ahead of where we plan to be by a fair bit. Revenue, again, that dial, the little grey section, you'll see a little bow on it. The grey section refers to the budget to date. The green section refers to the remaining budget for the year, and the little dial shows you where we are. So revenue-wise, you can see we're tracking slightly ahead. In operating expenditure, we're also tracking ahead where we plan to be, but with capital expenditure, we're actually a bit slower than we thought. Down at the bottom is the gross debt position. We actually have a lot less debt than we planned to be, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail later on. After that, we've got more detail around the non-financial section. As you can see, that graph there is broken down into group of activity levels. The main ones that we've actually missed, some of them, is the community and cultural and community facilities and services, mostly around timing of how we can report those, and also the number of consents and things that we've actually received, coupled with some staff with capacity. Moving on to the financial results. So again, that shows us first off the operating results at a whole council level. Green means good, red means unfavourable. As we can see, the main drivers there is higher subsidies and grants. The Sergeant Gallery redevelopment has a lot of extra revenue from grants that we received there as well. While we can see operating costs are a bit higher too. Below that is some commentary on why those variances are there. One of the big drivers for our operating expenditure is in the roading space, where we're responding to weather events and also a lot more cyclical maintenance preparation for our works program. After that, we broke that operating results down by group of activity. The little graph shows, on the right-hand side, shows you all the revenues side of stuff. Left-hand side shows you the expenditure. Green means good, red means unfavourable results. Again, there we can see in riding the footpath, that's the big one where expenditure is higher. Down at the bottom, we can see a lot of revenue from the Sergeant Gallery grants. Furthermore, below that is some commentary around each of those for the big variances. Moving on to page 15, we've got the capital expenditure side of things.
Excuse me, Fiona. I notice that you're now numbering your paragraph, so can I suggest that you refer to the numbers in your report rather than the pages, because you can't see the pages on the electronic version?
Very well.
Thank you.
Moving on to starting at point 31, the capital expenditure. So again, that gives us a very high level view of where we are. At the moment, we're tracking slower than we plan to be, and the main drivers around that is around the Sergeant Gallery and the port redevelopment project, which has been transferred to the port entity, which is managing that project for us. We've got a couple other projects in the Three Waters area, which, as we finished up with our stimulus project, we're now getting back on track with our planned works. The graph down the bottom of that page shows us a capital expenditure by the type, so we broke that down by growth, acquisitions or replacements, so the type of expenditure that is. The next page we broke it down by the group of activities, so we can see the blue line is actually where our actual expenditure is to date. The grey line again is the budget for the year to date, while the orange brownie line refers to the remaining budget for the year end. So we can see roading and footpaths is actually tracking well to capital. Transportation, which is actually a port redevelopment project, we've transferred all that, so the budget's unfortunately still sitting with council, but all the expenditure is being incurred by the port entity. Furthermore, we can see the rest of those activities. There is some commentary below that again, which gives some more detail. The final bit is point number 42, and that actually shows us our debt position at a council level. So that graph shows the two grey lines show our gross and net debt. So gross would be total external debt, net debt would be gross debt less any cash that we're holding. The blue line shows us our actual debt, so we can see that our actual debt is quite a bit lower. And the green one, the cash and cash equivalents, also show that we're holding quite a bit of cash. This is driven from the lower capital expenditure today. We're actually taking out loans, we're not spending the money on the capex work, so we're investing that in term deposit and holding it so it is available if needed. Then right on the back we've got a very simple profit and loss or statement of financial performance. This is more a traditional view. Going forward, we're actually going to include a funding impact statement, which gives a better view of council operations, because the traditional financial performance measure just breaks it down by revenue, expenditure, and then capital expenditure. The funding impact statement, or FIS as we call it, actually breaks that down further and says what subsidies relate to capital works, what operating revenue relates to operating expenditure. So it gives you a far better picture of what council operations are. Then after that, we've got an attachment which goes into a bit more detail around our non-financial measures and a short blurb on each of the each activity's financial performance as well. Any questions on that?
Quite unbelievable, there are no red lights on. It is an outstanding report, really. I really appreciate it, and it's really informative. We do have a question. Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the report. It's not working very well, so you could bring in mics like that.
Throw your voice.
Thank you. I think it's point 16, I'm just looking. I think just also for the public, I guess, because we've got some of this information, I think, in discussions through, the last few months of council, but with the higher court consultant cost, about 153,000, can we just get a bit of a, why? What does it mean? Are we completely, have we over budgeted? Are we did it roll out? Is it going to get worse? Is it we expected? Is it, can you just give us explanation around that, please? Or perhaps the chief executive? The court, high consultant cost report, about 153,000, David. I just point to
So which paragraph are you?
there are unfavourable variances in the following. It's page 12 of the report, I believe. And perhaps just before while you're finding that, I'm gathering like the personal costs are in the splash centre about 367,000 as some kind of explanation. That really is about that sport Wanganui. The staff were in the sport Wanganui. They've now transitioned to CART. So although council all had cost for the splash centre, the staff have been moved from sport Wanganui to us, and obviously some leave and stuff has been to be some paid out and accrued. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So to just give a very high level overview, traditionally Sport Wanganui managed the contract for us. We paid them bulk funding. The revenue and they paid all the expenditure related to that. Now, because it's come in-house, council takes the revenue, but it also means we pay for all the expenditure. So we're not paying bulk funding out to them, but we now have basically unplanned staff costs, which we don't plan to pay these staff, but the cost is being offset by the fact that we're not paying any bulk funding, and we're also taking the revenue for that. In regards to the legal accrual, that as well. So obviously we've taken these staff on board. We've also taken any leave liabilities related to that staff. So if they've got long service leave or accrued leave or annual leave, whatever, whatnot. So that actually falls into staff costs as well, the initial recognition of that.
And so I could just ask further on that, haven't got it quite in my head, but the splash centre may have cost the ratepayers, I'll say 800,000, maybe, between 700 and $1 million over a few years that I've been around it. We now going forward, we will be able to get a true cost going forward, perhaps 6 monthly, yearly, of actually what the ratepayer cost of the splash centre, Longy's Pool, for example, just like we do with the library, the Memorial Hall. Is that correct?
So, through you, Madam Chair, for clarity, yes, that is correct. You'll get the full accounting reports for the Splash Centre and the Whanganui East Pool coming through, and you'll see the full picture of the rates revenue, the non-rates, fees and charges revenue, and then the true cost of operating it. In terms of your previous question, the budget that's been set for the operation of the Splash Centre now that it's come back in-house, it is different from how it used to be done under Sport Whanganui, because they used to keep the non-RAS revenue from the fees and charges at the entry tills. The net budget impact though is neutral. We've effectively lifted and shifted Sport Whanganui's budget over into RAS, and ratepayer is not expected to pay any more. And it is our intention that maybe at the 6-month point or just after, we bring the benefits realisation report back to council that just gives you some commentary on the success or otherwise of that transition and bringing it back in-house, so you can get all the details that you need.
Great, thanks very much for the explanation, David.
In terms of the comments around the report, I think actually that's so the port project. That is probably more of a timing issue. We are using, and these projects, it's not unusual to use a lot of engineering consultants, resource consent planners up front. When you think about it, we're going through a design phase to confirm the detailed designs for tendering. We're also busy lodging, dredging consents. These things are inherently quite consultant intensive. Without overstepping my reporting requirements, because this now does sit with the port operating company. But what I can say is that the cost to date on the project for those elements, detailed design and the consultants for the consent applications, is tracking within the expected range for those activities under the project. So we're not overspending. What you're seeing is just quite an intensity of upfront activities before we move into the build phase.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question on that? I had
Last one.
page, I think it's point 31. So in regard to kind of the total capital expenditure, I mean, I guess it's a significant variances. It's roughly 2/3 of what we've budgeted is not spent. And do we think that's reasonable? Are we? I mean, I appreciate it's not rates fund, it's not rates, and it's under rather than over. But do we, I guess overall, do we think we've got a good enough, I mean, I guess that the question is at the end of the year to year end, we tend to always, we're likely to still be under in regard to our CapEx budget.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll answer this one. In terms of where the capital budget sits at, you've had plenty of commentary from me already around how we need to improve our processes. You notice that all the cap budgets are simply pro-rated, so we're 6 months to a year, and the forecast we would have spent 50% of our budget. We need to get more sophisticated with how we time phase our budgets throughout the years, because we don't have a consistent, even 12-monthly spans. And it does cover other people, particularly all that seasonal work that over search. The weather's good and our roads improved, are outstanding millions of dollars and pretty sure as an organisation we're not there yet in terms of having the tools and the processes to be able to properly cash flow our capital budgets, but it is one of the things that we're going to achieve through the new project management methodology that we're putting in place. So at this stage, it's a cause for concern because we know that our work programme far outstrips our capacity to deliver, but it's not something that I think we need to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater either. It's a timing issue. but we are expecting we'll finish the end of the financial year significantly underspent and under the capital space.
Thanks, David. I guess I have to ask, you have had comments with us, just more in the public arena to understand. Thank you.
Councillor Rob.
Thank you. Yes, with this reporting, I do find it a little difficult that we don't have end-of-year projections on where we're heading to. But in terms of the debt, we are at gross debt of 107 million, projected debt of 120 million. How is that looking for the end of the year? Do you see that being within the budget, or do you see that going well past the budget?
Through your chair, the planned budget, assuming we meet all of our capital expenditure programs, complete all of them, is 136. If we were to do that, yes, I believe we would match that. But looking at how the projects are tracking and the fact that we're still using a lot of subsidy funding that we received upfront, I don't think we'll actually reach that planned debt level. I think we'll still be well under come year end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kate.
Thank you. It's really a follow-on question through Madam Chair to the Chief Executive. He's outlined how our timing in terms of CapEx projects needs to improve, and I believe it will. But will he give no weighting to how underspent we are in CapEx, to the environment that we're in, to COVID? That sort of thing.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, absolutely. There's no simple single answer to why our performance is tracking behind budget, but absolutely the impacts of COVID are a big contributing factor, both in terms of the direct disruption when we've had to close sites down because we've been short-staffed, the indirect impacts of delays for the supply of material, and then the significantly higher than inflation erosion of our buying power. We can simply get less bang for our buck because a lot of the construction materials that we purchase for our projects have gone up in price way more than the 7.2% CPI inflation that we're experiencing at the moment. That causes an inertia in its own right, where we then have to circle back on projects we plan to do, have found out we can afford to do, and then recast some of those decisions around whether we proceed and overspend, whether we bring reports back to council, or whether the project gets put on hold altogether. That all burns time that then affects our performance in delivering the programme.
I appreciate that, thank you, and good explanation. Would it be fair to say at the same time that in terms of the Sargent Gallery redevelopment, there's been a fair amount of forward buying to mitigate what you're outlining in terms of inflation?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, a lot of, as an example, a lot of the HVAC equipment I understand was purchased in advance up front so that we could secure its supply both in a timely manner but also to lock in the price. Those decisions by the project team have been a really positive foresight because they've probably avoided additional costs that would have come to that project had they not had the sense to make those purchases early.
Excellent. Thank you, Wuhan and Louise, for your valued input. May I have a mover?
Jim, we were just
Okay, so
talking about the financials and not
you're so correct. Over to Louise on the non-financials, unless if there is anything you wish to.
The non-financials, of course, are in the reference that's attached to your report. It is really just tracking progress of our key performance indicators that are set out in the long-term plan. So we have 77 KPIs, and of those, 55 or 71% have been met up until the end of December. So as point, there's a paragraph 10 there that outlines, gives a brief high-level overview of how we're tracking there. If you have any questions on the attachment, happy to take those.
No questions. Can I just remind everyone too that these don't appear to be working very well, and so anybody on the live stream will be having a great deal of difficulty hearing what we're saying. So we do need to make a bit of an effort to talk right into our mics and talk loudly. Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciated. Sorry, Rob.
Yeah, sorry. I really haven't got a question for Louise, but I've got a question for the Chief Executive on this. Thank you. In the water supply, the median response time seems to be quite slow compared to the targets. For instance, median response time to urgent calls, and we're supposed to have under 1 hour, it's 9.6 hours. Median response time for a non-urgent, under 24 hours, it's 231 hours. Now, does this indicate that we have an issue with our contractor? And that's the question for the Chief Executive to comment on, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, I don't believe so. There's, again, no simple answer to this. There are a couple of factors that underlie this. So, first of all, in the last couple of years, there's been a national issue around Audit New Zealand's interpretation of how those metrics are measured, and they've effectively moved the goalposts for a number of councils by redefining what is an urgent call out. And if I can give you maybe an example, if somebody rings up and says, we've got a leaky pipe, and our response is, thanks for letting us know, we're planning to replace that pipe and it's going to happen in 3 weeks' time. Audit New Zealand's interpretation is that that call out cannot be closed out until the pipe is replaced in 3 weeks' time. That is completely contrary to previous interpretations of the definition and the basis on which those targets were set. So that's one factor. The other factor is, as an organisation, we need to get a little bit better at responding to our service requests and documenting the action we're taking. So a lot of service requests will have a very fast initial response where we'll say we're onto it and we've gone out and made the issue safe. At that point, we should be able to say we've met the initial response time, but staff are leaving those open until the permanent repair has been made 2-3 days later, which is all, again, artificially extending the response times that we're reporting to you, when actually our actual performance is much, much better than what we're recording in our system. So there's some improvement work we need to do with our staff there so that we actually give you an accurate reflection of what our performance really is, because at the moment we're telling you that we're worse than we really are.
Which is not helpful. Have you finished, Rob? Mayor Andrew.
This is a general question, and it's probably more related to the Risk and Assurance Committee, but in relation to the financial and non-financial KPIs, there are a number that haven't been met. Well, most of them have 71, but 29% of them haven't. Do we feel that we have risk mitigation satisfied against those financial and non-financial indicators that haven't been met?
So,
Yes.
yeah. Through you, Madam Chair, I think, again, it's important not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you look, one of the trends that goes through the non-financial performance measures that we failed to achieve, they're typically related to visitation numbers. And if you think the first half of the financial year, we were still experiencing a lot of disruptions because of our COVID vaccine policy, meaning that events at our venues weren't taking place, but the targets were set in a pre-COVID environment. So that said, there is always room for scrutiny, making sure that our performance is up to the standard we expect and making sure we've got appropriate mitigations in. But also, like I say, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater and judge ourselves too harshly for something that was well outside of our control.
Councillor Helen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for the Chief Executive. This is the first meeting for this new triennium, and the KPIs report's very good. I'm just wondering for our public and for councillors, if they've got specific issues, for example, around the flooding that has occurred around the town and region, and the complaints we've been receiving from householders about the infrastructure failing or not coping, which some of those are long-standing issues. Where will we get reporting on that, or how will that be raised in these sort of meetings?
So, through you, Madam Chair, the purpose of this committee is to monitor and provide oversight over the council's performance and the delivery of our services. So this is absolutely the right forum for that kind of monitoring and reporting to occur. And I think there's two really fundamental and basic questions that boards, governance teams should always be asking is, have we got the right strategy? And then are we having an impact when we're delivering the strategy? This is the forum for, are we having the impact that we desire? And we can actually look at some of those things. It is important to note some of the recent issues around the flooding will have exceeded our levels of service. So council doesn't provide an unlimited flooding capacity on our stormwater system. It has a design capacity. And then when that's exceeded, our community can expect some flooding. That's why we have a civil defence programme. It's why we encourage our communities to have their own personal preparedness plans. So that said, where there are specific issues, you can expect reports on those matters to come for discussion at this table. And then for, if we need to change our strategy because we're not performing for whatever reason, we can recast our plans through the Strategy and Policy Committee. Does that help answer your question? I feel like I rambled then.
No, I think that's good. I think myself, I'll be raising certain issues with you, and that sets it. And I think other councils can do that too, that we're feeding through the mayor and the chairs and the CE on issues, and then that sets the scene for fuller reports have to come on through. Thank you.
Yes, and if I can make a final comment, the next report on the agenda is the start of the kind of reporting that you can expect to see coming through this committee on a more routine basis. So where we have specific projects that warrant their own standalone reports, we'll bring them to you, but then at the same time bringing you overall portfolio and program reports so you can see what's happening at a glance across the whole capital program or across a whole operational activity, and you very quickly hone in where there's issues by exception, rather than us kind of distracting you with a lot of reporting that's just noise about we did this, we did that. Actually, where are we failing to have an impact? Where are we failing to deliver our strategy? That's where the board, as you as a board of governors, need to focus your efforts and your attention and your oversight.
Thank you, David. Councillor Philippa.
Yeah, thank you. And appreciating all the commentary you've kind of given, David, and that. But could I just ask specifically around building control, page 42, the percentage of building consents processed within the statutory timelines is significantly down, basically a third of what we want, and we want 100%. There's some commentary there about, staffing constraints, I guess, and we've got some new resource being engaged. Could you, though, have we got a level of frustration, complaints from builders, developers, businesses significantly impacted by this? And how soon do you think we can start seeing some turnaround here in that target, please?
So, through you, Madam Chair, the issue, again, multiple contributing factors. With COVID, a big surge in the numbers of building consents being applied for, compounded by the fact that we were short-staffed. We have responded as management team and increased the resourcing that's available to the building consent team and hired additional building control officers, and there's further resource allocated as part of the annual plan capacity building piece that we've tabled with you already. In terms of turning around that KPI, unfortunately, because the target is 100% under the statutory requirements, we failed to meet that the second we missed one consent. So effectively, next financial year is the wiping the slate clean, and our opportunity again then to aim for that 100% compliance rate. But till then, it's about getting through the remainder of the year, processing it, hopefully all of the new consents that come into us on time within the statutory requirements.
And frustration and any complaints around that area, or, you know, we're missing some businesses wanting to develop?
Again, building consents like our resource planning, it's a complicated matter. We do receive complaints from time to time. I would say that compared to other councils, I don't think our building consent team is particularly noisy in terms of the volume of complaints that come in. And often there's contributing factors both on our side and the applicant's side. Frustration that their consent is taking a long time to process, when actually we've gone back to them and requested additional information to allow us to process the consent. Those kind of issues crop into it.
Thank you.
Councillor Robb, last question.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I had the question on the same point. I've certainly heard quite a bit of comment about the delay in building consents, and this figure of 36.5 is something I've never seen before. They've
Question, Rob?
generally, yeah, I've got a question. Generally been in the 90%. So I accept what you've said, David, and it's well explained, but I think there needs to be some communication come out from council about this. This is quite an important issue. Would you consider some sort of comms campaign to explain the real situation here?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think actually, rather than a comms campaign as such, what our intention is to build a much better relationship between the council and the development community, both across land use and resource consents and building consents. So our compliance manager, Mr. Shaler, is in the process of establishing bi-monthly developers forums where we can get our infrastructure staff, our planners and our building control officers in a room together with the surveyors, the developers, the landowners, and actually start having conversations around, so what are the issues in the system, how can we get things unstuck, how can we refine and improve our practices so that when we do business together, they're achieving their goals and outcomes, and council is also able to fulfil its responsibility as the regulator in a collaborative and cooperative way. So I'm hoping that within the next month we'll have the first of those forums, and then they'll become a routine thing so that we can communicate, nurse the relationship through this difficult patch, and then hopefully improve and build on it going forward.
Yeah.
May I have a mover? Kate, thank you. And second, Helen, thank you very much. All those in favour? I'm sorry, step back. I don't see any lights on for any comment. There is a comment. Okay, Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I think Councillor Vincent raises a good point about forecasting. Maybe not in too much of a, detailed sort of way, but sort of the flavour for the next half of the year would be helpful. In terms of the non-financial monitoring reports, there's some very good responses from managers in terms of what they're doing to mitigate the non-achievement of the various indicators. Sometimes, though, some of the responses, it's kind of like I can hear the manager thinking, how many words can I get away with in terms of a response? So it's really nice to see what the mitigation is, and we'd really encourage that in the reporting. Thank you.
Councillor Michael.
And yes, second what Kate said, I really enjoyed the report, so thank you for that. It gave all the clarity that I required. What I would say, though, is 77 KPIs, and only I could understand it. I'm special. No, as in like I sat as a councillor and I read the report. I'd love to see a customer-centric version of that report online with beautiful KPIs that people can see live. Is there something it's not a question, sorry. Yeah, that's it. It's not a question.
No.
Comments?
Comment. Thank you. Yes.
Mayor Andrew.
All I want to say is that congratulations on an outstanding report. Really, this is the first committee meeting of this kind that we've had, so it was interesting to see what came of it. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rob.
Yeah, thank you. This building consent is a very important part of the role of this council with the public. You know, it's where they're affected severely a lot of the time, and certainly out there in the public there has been a lot of concern, and my answer has always been that, you know, every council is having this. Every council has a problem with resources. I think that this has been addressed largely in the next annual plan, and it's good to see that the Chief Executive has included substantial amount of extra funding into this particular area of council. And I think the public will see a big improvement in the issue of resource consents. It has been taken seriously. We know the effect of it. And I think it's well underway by a competent team to improve this. Thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation, which do we need to read it out? Okay. So, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item up is the Capital Project Status Report, and we welcome Sarah O'Hagan. And
Morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah O'Hagan, and I look after community property and places. And I've got a couple of project managers here with me that I will introduce as we go through each of our status reports. And we've got Gay online who will cover off the sergeant.
Gay Betty.
So the reporting today is a new style of reporting. So bear with us. We will want to iterate and adjust as we go through.
Excuse me, Sarah,
some of our capital
Sarah,
program.
could you just introduce who's sitting next to you as well, please?
So we've got Trish Taylor Pope, project manager for Curbside. I was just going to do it one by one. So the intention of this reporting is, or the style of reporting is to increase the frequency so that you're across, you and the public are across these projects on a more regular basis than perhaps we're used to. It is a project status on a page that's intentional. So it isn't a deep dive, but we have the project managers here to take questions. And as I said, we can adjust and adapt the template, if you like, as we go along to satisfy the need. So what I was going to suggest was that we go through them one by one, and then we can have questions while the project manager's sitting at the table. Otherwise, we'll have a cast of thousands sitting here. So we've got two styles of projects that we're covering off today. The traditional capital type project where we're delivering bricks and mortar, so that's the Sergeant and the Velodrome, and then the other two projects, Curbside Recycling and Streets for People, so less about bricks and mortar and more about service and look and feel. So starting with Curbside, Trish Taylor Pope is our project manager for that project. So we take that the report has been read, and I'm sure there's some questions.
I don't see a single red. Oh, we've got two.
Thank
Mayor
you.
Andrew.
And it may be somewhere else, but in regards to curbside recycling, that's something we've been discussing in council meetings. What, if all goes well from what you know now, what would be a date that we could potentially start curbside recycling, given the tenders are in place and then mobilising the who wins the tender to get up to speed?
So we're working towards the 1st of July, as we've talked in the arena before. The 1st of July this year. As you'll see, the schedule is behind track. And the reason it's behind track is that there are a number of reasons, but one of them is our procurement process was taking longer than expected. The tenders, the call for tenders closed just a week or so ago, and we're in the middle of that procurement, that evaluation process right now. That will take us, there's a number of steps involved in that. That will take us to do the evaluation, another 2 or 3 weeks, and then we will need to head into negotiations with the preferred supplier. So it's a bit of a wishy-washy answer. We can't be clear on that delivery date until we've gone through the evaluation process. So we've been clear with our interested parties that we were aiming for the 1st of July, but we accepted that that was a very aggressive and ambitious timeframe.
Councillor Robb.
Yes, and with the curbside recycling, when could we get a report about the tender situation? Like the level of interest is very important here. You know, I mean, we don't need to know details about the tenders, but just the general level of interest, you know, like number of tenderers, and at some stage whether we are on, whether our budget looks realistic. When will we be able to get that sort of information?
David's
I'm happy to. So budget, we'll be clearer about the budget when we've gone through the evaluation of the tenders. And with respect to the level of interest, yes, there is a good level of interest. We've got a project team that's stood up to garner and solicit that interest and turn that into a champion type approach. That's what Trisha's here to do. Did you have any comments that you wanted to make?
No, other than there is a timeline for the tenders board to go through, so they're following their processes, and then once that comes about, it will be presented to council from there.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I can just make a closing comment on that. Returning elected members will maybe recall that the tender process started just before the election period. So you did actually delegate authority to the chief executive to keep the process moving. But one of the requirements was that we reported back to council before we awarded the contract. So you can expect a report to come that will detail how many bids we got, the spread of prices, all of that detail, along with an officer's recommendation on who the preferred bidder is for award of the contract. So once the evaluation process is finished, expect that to land on an agenda near you soon.
Councillor Peter.
Yes, just one little detail. The tenders, just out of interest, how many tenderers were there?
I'm not able to share that at the moment because we're in the middle of the procurement and the evaluation process. That's sensitive information. We'll be able to share that after we've gone through the process.
Councillor Charlie.
Thank you. I don't see it here, but I'm not quite sure whether this is the right time to ask the question, but how's things progressing with the taxiway at the airport?
Not relevant to this item.
Maybe
Everyone went quiet.
Well, it's not relevant to this item.
It's more. I'm not going to answer this
Okay.
question. So, through Madam Chair, just for clarity, this is a new committee, and we are redesigning our project management methodology and how we manage programs and portfolios of projects in council. We are expecting to build on this reporting. So going forward in future meetings, we'd like to be able to bring you a traffic light report on all of the projects in our portfolio, as well as some of the more notable projects having their own standalone reports. Happy to have a discussion offline around that particular project that is not included in this report. But again, you can expect to see more reporting more frequently in really easily digestible formats coming into these committees.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm up to speed with the topic. The questions that I'm getting are from people who are elderly or disabled, and a local resident asked me the other day that, and I recall saying this in council, that those persons who can't get their wheelie bin down the driveway because it's too steep up or down, some burly person, male or female, was going to assist going up, putting it up for them. So it sounds very minuscule, but it's important to those with disability. When you go through the tender process, that question about their willingness, so say a tenderer X says, yes, I'm tendering and I'm very happy to get my people to go up the drive or down the drive for designated people who are on my list. That is going to be clearly part of the support that the preferred tenderer would be providing for those persons, that it's not going to be ignored and disappear.
So that was one of the requirements of our tender, that we have an assisted service. So yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that part of the report. We'll leave you to move on to the next. We'll do them one at a time, eh?
Thank
next
you.
one.
So we've got Gay. Thanks, Trish. We've got Gay on online to cover off the sergeant. Similar approach and different to what you're used to with respect to the sergeant. This is the rolled up version. So happy to go straight to questions.
Just wait a moment for questions to come to mind. Any questions? Councillor Philippa.
Thanks for this easy to read report. Thanks very much. So could we be reminded, we're seeing here a forecasted completion in this public agenda of 67.8 million. Could we, but I'm not seeing, could just be reminded of seeing what's the approved budget, and has all that funding been confirmed? Just unclear about what's the forecast, what's the approved budget, what's the funding gap, and what's the council full contribution. It would just be really good and important information for us and our ratepayers, please. Gay, do you want to take that?
Yes, okay. So the project budget, approved project budget is, as stated, shown here, the 64.4, and we have currently committed expenditure to 65 million. So that's 600,000 over the project budget that was considered and discussed back in February last year. And what we've done in terms of forecasting what the final cost will be is, instead of putting one point into the ground, we've put a mid-range, which we've expressed here as 67.8, based on a number of risks, those risks being discussed and shown on the sheet here. So there's a high, low and medium risk assessment that's been put there so that we can look to fund that accordingly.
Thanks, Gay. But just for clarity, I think you talked about a committed budget of 64 million. But is that, I'm unclear, and I think I rate, have we got all that funding in place? That's committed. That's what that means, is it? That funding's in place to about 64 million.
Through you, Madam Chair, I might try and bring some clarity here. So, through the annual plan process, we are provisioning enough funding to complete the project in full. So technically, no, because council has not yet consulted with the community and adopted the annual plan. We're on the pathway to do that. And at the same time, we're also still securing additional external funding that we hadn't originally accounted for, which is going to reduce the ratepayers' contribution. Just on the forecasted completion, we as officers did have a little bit of a discussion on how we present that to you, given that we are still 10 months away nearly from completing what is still quite an extensive construction program. So the risk profile of that project makes it more prudent to present council with a range of where we think the costs are going to land at the end of that project, because giving you a precise figure is probably gives you a false sense of security over the precision and accuracy of our forecasts. There's still a lot of unknowns and a lot of risk that could or could not materialise throughout this period. As Gay said, at this stage, our committed cost is about $65 million. That's what we know we're going to end up paying, plus anything else for risk that materialises between then. For the sake of simplicity, we've provided you with the midpoint of the range so that we could put a figure in there. But again, we've always said our budget is not a target to reach. We want to minimise the cost of delivering the product, the project, while still delivering a quality product that meets the original brief. Hopefully that helps clarify.
Yeah, thanks, David. And David, and just going a couple of other quick questions on this, please. Either David or Gay. I asked in the first place, but it seemed to be useful to keep updating the full council contribution, and I do think it'd be fair that that's on the whole the transition to, or even if it's separate, the transition to Sergeant on the Quay, the transition back. I'm not, obviously it's not sitting in there now. And my last question will be, where would we expect to see and read about the, and I guess I know we've got an annual plan coming up, but the current OPEX, or operational costs for the Sergeant, and the expected operational, and how we're moving on the project development forward, to make sure we just don't build a building and then kind of say, where are the people?
So, through Madam Chair, I'll answer this one because I think it goes beyond the scope of what Gay's remit is. Look, first of all, in terms of the reporting format, I think it's an easy improvement for this particular project that in future meetings we can give you a running total of the council's funding contribution and third-party central government funding, just so that you can see what proportion is actually being paid for by the ratepayer. So we'll take a note of that. In terms of your second part of that question, again, it's part of the improvements to our project management methodology. When we're preparing business cases for future projects, we need to be looking at the whole of life of the project and assessing not just the upfront capital build cost, but then also what is the consequential operating cost that the council will incur, so that we have a line in the sand around what those costs are expected to be when we commit to a project. And then you've got a benchmark to measure things like our annual plans against. Are we tracking in line with the original business case? In the meantime, though, in the absence of having that kind of detail for this particular project, you will see it through the annual plan process where we've resourced up. You have a baseline against the original LTP forecast. I am pleased to report that what we're putting into the annual plan is actually slightly below what was originally forecast in the long-term plan. So our community can have some assurance that we have tightened our belt given the current economic context that we're operating in, and we haven't simply just rolled forward the original budget without any proper scrutiny.
Councillor Rob.
Thank you. Gay, I'm seeking an update on the estimated completion date now. First of all, for when it's going to be ready for an internal fit out and when it's going to open the doors, please.
So we consider the construction completion as the base build. Now, the base build does include the internal fit out. And so when it gets handed over, at this stage, that's at the end of December, it gets handed back to the Sergeant Gallery on Quay team, and they proceed to install the first exhibition, and that planning is well underway, and the anticipated opening is April 2024.
Oh, thank you. When one goes and has a look there at this time, the builders that can seem to have a lot in front of them. Are you pretty confident that you're going to get that handover date?
We did have, and I've noted here as a known issue, is the availability of labour. So certainly the progress we would have expected to have seen at this point in February is behind. But I've heard good news this month that Macmillans have actually secured an additional 10 non-resident workforce so that they can deepen the activities on site. To ensure that we maintain programs. So that's one of our key focuses. It's a known issue, and we're looking to the contractor to find ways to mitigate that and make up for lost time due to those migrant workers taking extended leave over the December-January period.
So if the contract date is not met, are there penalty clauses in the contract that penalise the contractor for not meeting the date?
No, there's not.
There's not. Okay.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment?
Oh, very brief one.
Yeah. Sorry. I just want to be clear, and it might sound a little retentive for detail here, but it's unlawful for council to charge penalties under construction contracts law. We can only recover actual damages through those clauses. And I think it's an important point to note, just because we want to, you've been through the workshops where we talked about our supply chain leadership role and getting value for money out of our contractors. It's quite a old school mentality to be talking penal clauses, and they're unlawful anyway.
Councillor Peter.
Yes, thank you. Back to the budget. Can you tell me the range? I know this is a mid-range, but it's the middle of what? The two extremes. And also, is that inclusive of contingencies?
Yes, firstly, it does include the contingency. So effectively, this is the risk now is our contingency. What we consider we may need at the worst case scenario. So the top end of the risk is close to 71 million, and the lowest, most optimistic would be 66 million.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thanks for the report, Gay. Just looking at the top risks, and they may not be in any particular order, but the top one you've got there of the top risks is unforeseen complications with seismic strengthening and making good repairs to the existing building. I would have thought we'd be past that as being a standout risk, but is that not the case?
Certainly we are, and we are in the final phase, but we cannot say that there isn't a risk, and you're right, it's not in a particular order. For example, oops, I just muted.
No, you're good.
Okay. For example, we identified some cracking right up in a gallery ceiling in one of the interior areas, unexpected. Just when you're up there doing the final detailing, that's when they found that. That's now been measured and rates set and will be managed. But that's the kind of unforeseen. But you're right, we are at the point where now that we've uncovered everything, those risks are reducing right down.
Thank you.
And we did ask for those risks to be reordered in the briefing, and they weren't reordered. May I have a mover? Oh, no, we don't.
We've got two more to go.
Going into habit. Sorry. Just
so we've got the
getting ahead of myself. Thank you, Gay.
Thanks, Gay. Joining the table. So Rosemary Fletcher is looking after this project and questions.
Councillor Ross.
Madam Chair, thank you. On the velodrome, when the velodrome track is replaced with this material, subject to no roof being available for it, what is the projected lifetime of that material if no roof was supplied?
We have a 50-year.
Sorry.
Through the chair. We have a 50-year warranty for the Akoya wood that on the track, so that's precluding any damage from use.
Did you say 50?
I did.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Councillor Robb.
Thank you, Rosemary. You are obviously supervising this contract. Have you got a team, a team for the velodrome that includes the local cycling community? And what advice are you seeking from them?
I'll take some of that. Yeah, we do have a team. We're just mobilising that team, and it includes the cycling community and people like Sport Wanganui. And that is more focused on how we let people know that the velodrome's back on the map, so to speak. We have had some advice, quite pointed and specific advice recently from members of that community, which we are taking on board.
Thank you.
Councillor Michael.
Kia ora. Just a clarification question. You said 50 years warranty without use. We're still predicting 25 years of use, though? Because I remember reading it's 25 years of use we're predicting. I haven't heard 50 before. Tell me I'm wrong. It's 50 years. Really, 50 years? That's fantastic. Okay, thank you.
Have you answered your own question? Any further comment from either of you on that self-answered question? Councillor Philippa.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the report. I know, all going well, there's going to be maybe about 120,000 underspend of that 2.5 budget. And with that in mind, I guess my question is, and with the question just answered about the other use, the work starting or happening with the cycling club and Sport Wanganui, etc. Is there any look at with this development around improved amenities, so around, for example, toilet facilities, spaces that are easier for public to go there, get in there, use the track, go to the toilet or whatever, and would that possibly come under that underspent budget?
That's part of that putting the velodrome back on the map exercise with the users and the sporting community around the track. With respect to specific budgets, we haven't done that yet. But as you rightly pointed out, if there's an underspend, then we could come back here with a plan for that.
Thank you. Councillor Kate.
Just a very quick question. I was asked by a member of the public about and I won't have the right words, about the Akoya wood, whether it was a sustainably harvested and all of that stuff, whether it was good stuff from on my words. You'll have better words, Rosemary.
Through the chair. Yes, Councillor, it is the good stuff. Akoya is radiata pine that is then shipped away, processed to give it the longevity of the hardwood, and then brought back in. So yes, it is. It's originally a New Zealand product, processed overseas and brought back into New Zealand.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rosemary.
Right, thank you. Now we've got the Streets for People project. Denise Brettle is our project manager for the Streets for People project, which we have just kicked off our round of engagement sessions with the community. Second round is starting this week. Things are going well. This is the status of this report. Everything's green, so we haven't got any bumps just yet, and we're hoping that we won't. So, any questions for Denise?
Councillor Helen.
Better ask Denise something. She's sat here all for the last couple of hours. Denise, I think the time frame for having a plan for the work you've been doing is June this year, which seems quite tight given a lot of things. But can you just tell us how you're tracking with that and any concerns, happy? It's your floor. Thank you.
Where we are at present is we have appointed the design team for the project, and we're just in the process of getting contracts and all of that sorted out so that we can make the announcement of who will be our designer. We are looking at the moment, workshops should be completed early May, which then gives the designer some free space where we're not going to throw anything more at them. We need to have our plan to whakamutunga as part of our funding arrangement with them at the end of July. And everything at the moment, we've got our road safety engineer involved in the project at the ground level, so he's able to tell us as we're doing things, no, you can't do that, yes, you can do that, I want more information on that. So we're getting that input right from the start. We believe that our timeframes are actually quite achievable, and once we've got the design signed off, we're basically being told by Downer that construction on the road is not favourable weather-wise until late September, October, so doing our implementation of the plan is tracking quite well.
Just to add, Helen, that we're in regular contact with our relationship manager at whakamutunga, and we're actually tracking ahead of some of our colleagues. Yeah. So things are looking okay.
Yeah, no, good. I have got a lot of confidence. You've done a lot of public consultation. I guess for me, the question is, and for the public maybe, you're doing public consultation now, then you get a designer who I guess gets to interact still with the public about the design, but at some point we have to put a stick in the ground and saying this is the design, because otherwise we're not going to meet our timetable and you can't consult further. So how are you managing that in terms of expectations from the community?
As many of you councillors, I know that Charlotte's attended some, Ross has attended some, and you have, Helen. Those workshops you would have seen, we were just asking for ideas. We do our second workshop for the St Hill aspect on Thursday, and what we'll be doing is a report back on all of the ideas we were given, and we start turning them into concepts. The designers are going to be present so that they can pull out what exactly people mean. The intent is then when we go to the third workshop for each of the aspects, we'll be saying, well, this is what we heard, this is what we're looking at as a very broad sketch. At that point, we get the feedback from the community involved to say, yeah, that's what we had in mind. No, that's not what we had in mind. This is what we want you to consider. We will take those ideas, and the idea is that prior to going to whakamutunga, we will come back to the community and say, this is what the design is that we're looking at moving forward with. We haven't set our date for that because it all depends on if we go back to our third workshop and everyone goes, actually, no, that's not what we had in mind. We come back and we'll go back into consultation to say, well, what exactly do you want? And it may only be little pieces of the concept that we need to revisit.
I think the key thing with this is that we're working the designs up in a collaborative manner. So the idea being that no one is surprised, so we don't go into a rabbit hole conversation at the end of the process and then unpick. So it's alongside, but as Denise mentioned, we have got that window at the end of the programmed consultation period to loop back and circle back if we have to. But we are managing the expectations in the sessions. We were saying, you know, we're making decisions as a group. We've got some things that we can't adjust. There's some, you know, there's some things that we just can't do because things have got to function as a road, for example. So putting down clear guide rails and then operating within those with the community. So it's decision by committee.
Thank you. Councillor Peter.
Yes, thank you, Madam. Just a quick thing on top risks and mitigation, the capacity of the project team to complete the co-design approach, and where is the mitigation?
The capacity has been more to do with the fact that we hadn't got the designers on board. Now that we've got those, our concerns about capacity are dissipating. It was more, did we have all of our ducks in a row as to what was needed to deliver this project?
And we prepared this report before our first lot of workshops. What we were worried about at that time, and it hasn't come to fruition, was a tsunami of wild and wacky ideas, and then the regular ones that we would have a bit of time to, but we wouldn't have enough time to work through in between each of the sessions. That tsunami, we haven't got wild and wacky ideas. We've got some really sensible, common themes coming through. So there's a lot of commonality, which makes the feedback, the loop back process that much easier and less time consuming.
So it's not a people person on your team directly from council where the capacity is lacking. You are the team.
No, we've got a couple of other teams, team members, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Andrew. Councillor Andrew. I knew that was going to happen. Mayor Andrew,
That's
my
all right.
apologies.
You can call me whatever you want, it's fine. Okay. So, look, from what I've seen... That's all right. So, from what I've seen for Streets for People so far, you've done a great job, so well done. And we've seen Drew's Avenue as well, awesome. So I'm just, what a wider question, probably for you, Sarah, in regard to the next streets project. Do we have an integrated streetscape strategy or plan for Wanganui?
A good question. So there is one thing that we need to do, and we need to look back and have a look at Drews Avenue, which was our first the last streetscape project that we delivered. So I would like to see that we go into that process after we've done the design of the Streets for People, Garden Street and St Hills, that we look back and have a look at Drews Ave, and we make decisions about the longevity of that, because that was done on the same premise that it's semi-permanent. The broader question relates, I think, more to the town centre regeneration strategy that I'm sure many of you are aware of, or all of you are aware of, and the burning platform question there for me anyway is a time for a revisit of that, and if so, how do we go through that process?
Right, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, and to all of the team. May I have a mover? Councillor Peter, and a seconder, Councillor Helen. Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's really good. You know, these bite-sized chunks are very understandable and helpful. Thank you. At the same time, we've got several projects in the report this morning, one $65 million project and several that are $1 or $2 million projects. And I'm just wondering about, and there was some conversation about future reporting on the Sergeant. I just have this anxiety that a one-page project on a one-page report on a $65 million project in terms of monitoring isn't quite meeting my obligations to monitor. It's a rhetorical question. No, it's a statement.
It's a statement. It's a good statement. Councillor Peter.
Yes, thank you. The report that's missing off here is the port project, I would have thought.
It's a CCO now, so it comes through the CCO committee.
Okay, thank you.
But fair comment. Philippa, sorry, looking at you, but not saying Councillor Philippa.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just also congratulations on the structure of this capital project status report. I think largely good, but I'd probably echo a bit similar concerns Councillor Joblin's raised around the significance, the size of the sergeant, the one pager, and are we meeting our expectations and the public's really. I'd like to go on a bit further. That I think, on that, obviously we still have. Thank you to everyone and all the work that's happening there, but a real gap still in capital funding, which is still significant. I'm slightly unsure of that gap, but what we heard was that there's at least 5 million between what Gay told us of 66 million confirmed today and as bad as 71 million. So, this is a top priority. I don't think I need to be looking at the chief executive to confirm, around that. It's a top priority to reduce the further ratepayer funding input around that, apart from what we're going to be considering at the annual plan. I'm going to go further to thank David in particular for understanding and confirming what the council and the community need to expect around the accountability and transparency around the Sargent Gallery. I mean, this is a project that's been here for way over a decade, and I'm delighted to see this level of accountability and transparency. It's been a long time coming, in my view, and it's really nice to feel not a villain to ask these key questions on such a significant project. And I look forward to improved reporting continuing around this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Michael.
Yeah, congratulations on this project on the page. It's what I'm used to, and I heard during our pre-chair meeting that it's not what you're used to. I love this. I think it's very easy to find, and it takes a lot of effort to distill complex projects down into a single page that anyone, including a councillor, can understand. And we can still actually go and find the detailed project risks mitigations in the current format. And I'd like to double down on my original comment from the last session, last time. The public will love these as a dynamic online reporting tool because they can see it straight away. Well done.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I also agree. I mean, I think the sergeant may well result in having a one-page commentary that sits next to the thing, and it may not be a full page, but it does talk about a few things. And I think the risk area too, and them needs a little look at just to get the risks and maybe a better order. Whether I don't think the traffic light system's the right way to go, but at least some form of ranking. But I think they're really great, and I think they'll slowly improve a little bit too. They'll be tweaked a little bit along the way. But I think it's a good start. Councillor Helen, late to the party.
I am late to the party. I couldn't resist. Through the chair, the commentary by one of my colleagues that even councillors could understand the report, I will take as a slip of the tongue.
Accepted. Okay, we haven't moved it.
Oh, we've got movers.
We do have movers and seconders. Oh, that's right, because we've had comments. So the Operations and Performance Committee received the report, capital projects and status report. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. And we move to our last and our late item, which is the Youth Places and Spaces Feasibility Study update. Welcome to the table. And welcome back, Lauren. Hope you got a good few sleeps.
Yep.
Good.
Tēnā koutou. Ko Stacey tōku ingoa. My name is Stacey White. I'm the Project Support Officer for the Youth Council. With me today is Lauren Tamahana, who you've all met. Thank you for having us. Today we're presenting you the Youth Places and Spaces Feasibility Study. After thorough review of the document, our officers are recommending that more information needs to be gathered regarding the best path forward with recommendations for youth places and or spaces for Wanganui. We take this report as read, and we're happy to take any questions.
Wow. Councillor Josh.
Thanks, Stacey. Appreciate the report. Can you please give us a broad overview of what the terms of reference for the feasibility study included when it went out for tender?
Just a reminder to everybody, speak into your mics and raise your voice.
I don't remember when it went out. It was out to tender for quite a while, and we had a couple extensions.
So if I can rephrase the question, what I'd like to know is what the report writer was asked to investigate.
Okay. The request for quotes had a number of deliverables, and they were to deliver a feasibility study on possible youth places and spaces options for the Wanganui area, providing the stakeholders with a comprehensive understanding of the unique needs of rangatahi in our area, as voiced by rangatahi. Engagement and communication, an analysis of the most effective way to engage Wanganui rangatahi in the proposed project, including a discussion regarding current issues and barriers faced by rangatahi that may prevent them from participating in the proposed youth places and spaces project model, and what tools and approaches, including communications, would be effective to increase youth participation and access to the proposed project model. And that would be used for youth places and spaces, but also within council, larger for policy and projects, just to get feedback from youth. Another is identification of where gaps of these needs and services currently exist in Wanganui, a detailed analysis of the different options using relevant research of current youth places and spaces being offered within New Zealand and also globally, a recommendation of how specifically to address these needs within our district based on youth places and spaces being offered within New Zealand, and a comprehensive explanation of the model being recommended and the rationale, identifying the capability, capacity, resource, and potential cost to implement the recommendation.
Thank you. Thorough answer. Appreciate it.
Councillor Helen.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. Look, there's lots of different every youth, every young person in our community will have different needs and drives and different things that they see that they would want or need. Mm-hmm. And we've identified, well, we around this table believe that our youth need more than this community is currently providing. And this report was supposed to eke that out. And of course, it's very difficult when they have all those different needs. So I'm not sure now if we've narrowed it down in this report about what the need is. And that concerns me after this, whatever money's been spent on this report and how long we've got here. Could you comment, please?
I could take a try. Yeah. This report was passed by our youth council yesterday. We had a really great conversation about it. And they don't feel like it represents where they're at and what they need also. So I can say that the youth council does mirror those concerns. Some of the feedback given from them was they haven't considered what we need, rather what they think we need. They reviewed the document. They're not sure how the model that they came up with is proposed. In saying that, I have been meeting with other councils across New Zealand and chatting about what models they have and why they have them. So just getting a deeper idea of what works and what path they took and why and what challenges they had has been really great and insightful, and has also raised some really great questions about what has come up in the study, which is why we're recommending that we need a bit more time to get some more information before we can really stand behind this recommendation in the report. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. So what I'm hearing from you is that I guess it's you personally, is going to be going to, you've talked to some other cities and what they've done. I'm not sure how it's going to come together, that's all, and I'm asking you, like, you've got a game plan coming going forward so that we're going to come to an answer? It feels like we're still in a quagmire.
Can I ask the next question?
That could be
Hang
a
on.
comment.
So let's do that.
Can I ask a question? That's probably a reframe of what Helen's saying. So if we approve the recommendations as tabled today, what would next steps look like, do you think?
One of the first steps we would take would be to sit down and have a deeper dialogue with our surrounding communities. One would definitely be Palmerston North, because we know they do have a mobile container pop-up space and it's not working. So really investigating why it's not working and determining if this recommended model is the best model for Wanganui. If we can rule that out, then the game plan. I don't know what the game plan would be from that point, but just knowing that we're making the right decision by not moving forward with this model, I think would be a great step. The content in the document, there's a lot of really great content in here that would help us try to justify what model would fit, but coming up with a clear path forward and how we would go about identifying it. We would need some review.
Thank you. I think what I'm hearing, and I just want to ask you, am I interpreting what you're saying, is that we want to go back to the drawing board, do some more thinking, look at the evidence we've got, and come back to us at a not too much later date with what next steps might look like. Would that be a fair paraphrase of what you're saying?
Almost. I'm hesitant to go back to a drawing board when we have such great information that's been gathered. We know that some of the limitations to this report were from COVID coming out, youth being in and out of lockdown, not being able to have really deep, meaningful engagement because of that. So that's why we had a lot of delays. So I recognize that, but I think a first step would be to be a deeper review of this report to see if we can stand behind the recommendation put forward. And right now we're at a solid maybe. Really don't think I would recommend putting it forward, but I'd like some more evidence behind that before.
Good.
And we do have another recommendation in the wings, which we will, when questions are finished, we'll put that forward as well.
Okay,
To make
thank you.
support what you're saying.
It's a good answer, thank you. I really like it. Thank you.
Councillor Philippa.
Thank you. Just 2 or 3 questions, please. It may be in here, but can we be told, can you remind us of the cost of this report? I think it came from the Youth Council budget, didn't it? Or was it within the Youth Places and Spaces budget?
$25,000 was from the Youth Places and Spaces Youth Council budget.
Thank you.
$10,000 was from the annual long-term plan. Then we had to approve an additional $4,480 through the Youth Council.
So roughly 40k.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I, so did the Youth Council have a presentation from the report writer, the consultant, and why aren't we? I really feel this, a 40k report, it's a pretty big report, there's a lot of information in there. This is a big important issue, it's a long-term issue. I'm thinking in my head, Josh will remind me, 4 million, around, no, 400,000 or so, around...
Comment or question?
Well, my question is, why has the Youth Council had the consultant, did he present to them, and or why we weren't invited, and why we're not being presented to? I really feel we've got this big report, and actually we've got with respect, we're not hearing and being asked the consultant, which is quite normal, in my view.
I can take it. We had a lot of delays in getting our report back, and initially within our agreement with the consultant, Impact Consulting, they would come to council and present. The initial final report date was June 30th with a presentation scheduled for July 12th at the council meeting.
Last year?
Last year.
Yeah.
We didn't get our final report until August 10th because there was a lot of back and forth between us and the consultant trying to get clarity on some certain items, really trying to answer some of our questions we had. So when the final report was received, it wasn't until August 10th. And we were preparing for elections, lots of last hooies for council, so we couldn't get onto the agenda. And here we are here, and it's been quite a while since that contract has closed. So it would be outside of the contractual obligations for the contractor to come in and report to you at this time, but we can invite them.
So just checking, it wasn't within his the contract for him to ever come and report to either youth council or council. In his actual contract, it wasn't within it.
Yes, it was within it, but it was within a required time frame, and this ended up way outside the time frame.
Okay. So on that, he hasn't come in and reported in person to the youth council.
Philippa David is going to make a comment.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I can maybe jump in here. Look, normally we would have a consultant produce a report. Officers would be happy to endorse and recommend that council adopts the recommendation of the report, and we would workshop it with you and then bring it to a committee here. This is a little bit unusual in terms of we've received the consultant's report, but we as officers have a question mark over whether we can endorse and make our own recommendation to council to run with that recommendation. We're very conscious that because of the timeline that's just been outlined, this process has straddled the election period, and then quite a bit of time has passed since we received this report to bringing it to you today. The intention of putting this report in front of you was to give you some visibility and an update on where it's at the process, but signal to you that officers are not yet happy to endorse the recommendation and further work is required. I fully anticipate that that further work will include, once we've got a recommendation from the consultant that we can endorse, workshopping it with you and giving you the in-depth understanding of how we got to that recommendation. But at the moment, it seems like a moot point to take you on a journey to understand why we've got a recommendation and effectively an incomplete piece of work. So take this as a progress update rather than looking for a full and final decision on the matter.
Okay. So and just final question would be: I would expect, would you expect that that we're going to we want to meet with the youth council and get a detail around this whole report as part of the going forward. So discuss it with the youth council, as David suggested, and also, you'd agree with that we need to meet with them to discuss the report or in a workshop or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Heat.
Back to the financial bits. The cost so far is $40,000. The annual plan has given $400,000. And I noted in there that recommended from the report was a capitalisation of 135, and then operationally another 135 to run it every year. Now, has that been accounted for in the 400,000? Because 135,000 over 5 or 10 years goes a lot higher than 400.
So, through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to jump in and answer this one. So, my understanding is the long-term plan only provisions their capital build cost. Again, I refer back to my earlier comments around needing to improve how we prepare business cases and then put bits forward for funding the whole of life cost of projects. That includes capital build and consequential operating costs. So again, we're circling back to tidy up process that should have been done differently originally. It's another reason why we need to go away and do some more work, understand actually what is the right way forward, and then put forward the funding, likely now as part of the long-term plan, because we simply don't have the time to do it properly for the current annual plan that's in draft.
So, can I ask, not a question, but a comment then?
No, questions only. Okay. Comments in a little whale. Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if we were to vote on the accept the recommendation, who would be sourcing that extra information that is required? And would it be added into this report, or would a new report be required?
It'll be the community wellbeing team, so we will just add to the report. So we'll dive a little bit more into the recommendation they've made and get some more detail on that, because that's one of the areas that's not sitting really well. So we need some more information on the practicalities of that, and then if that's not practical, what next?
Right. So, as Stacey said, there is a lot of good information in the report. So you will utilise that, but then potentially come up with a completely different outcome. Is that right?
We could, yes.
Good answer. Councillor Michael, you've turned yours off? Okay. Okay. Councillor Josh.
Thank you. And my question's really a follow-up from Charlotte. And I just want to confirm in terms of process that there is nothing to preclude us making a decision that differs from the final recommendation in the consultant's report, is there?
Correct.
Through you, Madam Chair, just because a consultant said it doesn't make it true. And part of officer's job is to scrutinise what third-party work is done on our behalf and make sure that as management we also stand behind it.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
And we have a further recommendation from, sorry, Councillor Ross. That's a late addition. It catches me off guard.
I'd follow the example of another colleague earlier, be late to the party.
I'm going to suggest it's not always the best thing to copy.
Yeah.
But go for it.
Equity. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for what you presented this morning. I have a strong interest in this topic and the eventual outcome, and I'm looking at option one, which is the preferred one. When you do go to other districts and ask you questions about what they are doing and PMIs or whatever it might be, the fact is, and I'm going to assume this is already automatic, the issues around our rangatahi, our iwi, disability, gender diversity, rainbow, mental well-being, and in addition, some of these districts that you might be contacting may have refugee children. And we stalled on that one because of consultation with the local iwi on it, but that will come back to us. And up to 150 families.
Question
is, will you be ensuring that these aspects that I have mentioned are part of your research? Sorry.
Absolutely. Yep, definitely. They're all top of mind in the work that we do with rangatahi. And also when meeting with our colleagues in Palmerston North and how they operate their youth space, they do it in a very inclusive and equitable way. And it's held by youth support workers. So that's something that I'm not taking very lightly. So,
appreciate that.
Yeah,
thank you.
Kia ora.
And before Councillor Kate speaks, are you speaking to the third recommendation?
No, I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question, and thank you for your indulgence, Madam Chair, in allowing me to ask that question. If the recommendations A and B are passed by the committee today, when might we expect to see you back with further progress on this matter?
Soon?
Soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully soon. As you know, I work part-time for council and my main focus is the youth council. And we're about to launch into a big recruitment drive, but we do know that this is a priority and yeah, we can start pulling together information.
Do we think in 2 months would be possible?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope.
Thank you very much, team. You've done a great job. Look, for the benefit of those on the live stream, the recommendations are that we receive the report, Youth Places and Spaces Feasibility Study. B, we acknowledge the need for more information about the provision of the youth places and spaces in Wanganui, and the new recommendation, which is from Councillor Josh, moved by Councillor Josh, and has a seconder, I'm presuming. Someone's going to be happy to second that. Councillor Charlotte, thank you very much. It says, request the Chief Executive and the Chair of the Operations and Performance Committee work together to determine the ongoing monitoring and oversight of the Youth Places and Spaces project. And that doesn't preclude certain other councillors from participating, possibly in place of the chair or with the chair. So we will comment.
No questions, because it's a new...
Oh, well, questions around the third item then. Councillor Helen.
Is it being moved?
Moved and seconded. Oh, sorry, who would like to move or second the... Councillor Josh and Councillor Charlotte has seconded the two. Thank you.
Okay, so you're moving and seconding all three at once?
Yeah.
As one? Cool, yeah, that's cool.
Wouldn't this be really a project for the new projects committee? I haven't got the right name, but it's a project. It's not... Hey? The aspiring projects, because it's still pretty aspiring from where I'm looking. Just a thought.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I would certainly see it as the appropriate forum if you think the report that you're receiving today becomes the feedstock for a business case for further capital and ongoing operating expenditure. That committee is the appropriate place for those kind of ideas to bubble up and get considered for funding.
I think my counter to that would be that this one's been on the table for a really long time. It has a substantial amount of capital funding. We've gone out and we've had a report written which has come back which hasn't really met expectations. So it's well down the track. So I'm thinking in some respects, yes, and normally that's where it would go. But I think perhaps it needs to complete here at the moment. But we can vote on that and we can see where it goes.
So I'm not suggesting we vote on that. I think that's a matter for the chair and the chief executive to discuss further. So I don't think that this motion needs to bind anybody to a committed part. It's about...
Agreed.
Okay, so I'd be happy to support this on the basis that you discuss that further in depth.
I think that's the intention of it, that there isn't a clear pathway, but we need to get one. We need to get one quickly and it needs to be appropriate to get the result we would like.
Can I make a comment, Madam Chair?
We are in questions at the moment.
It's in response to the question that was raised about the motion.
We are in questions, sorry.
Okay, I will wait.
Yes. So we've got movers and seconders for all of those. Now we can move into comments. Councillor Josh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll start off by just speaking very briefly about the third recommendation, and just to say that I kept this as broad as possible to ensure that there was the appropriate leeway to determine what the ongoing oversight looks like. And also not to preclude, what the various forums might be for providing that oversight. The one comment that I would make is that this project is a key LTP long-term plan item that we consulted on, that received the most support of any LTP item that was consulted on, with about 78% of people supporting it. Therefore, to me, the idea that this goes back to a committee that's responsible for looking at what future projects this council might undertake is not the appropriate forum, because we have already agreed to pursue youth places and spaces as part of a formal long-term plan process. And therefore it needs to sit, in my view, with one of these governance committees for ongoing oversight. If I can just speak more broadly to the other recommendations, I support the officer recommendations here. And I want to start, first of all, by acknowledging the report writers, because there is actually some really good content in here more broadly. I mean, the information that's been provided around future opportunities to enhance play for young people in the CBD is really good. It's really positive. It'll be good for the town centre regeneration. But in terms of the final recommendation, I also do have a number of questions around how that got to that recommendation. For instance, you know, the idea that a permanent facility in the CBD could become dominated by one particular demographic or group of young people. That's one of the concerns raised. I struggle to understand how a 40-foot shipping container would avoid that problem. There are quite a number of recommendations in here that we just need more information on. And so, yeah, I'll leave it there. A lot of comments and thoughts running through my head right now. I do have some frustration about the length of time it's taken to get to this point. You know, we did pass this in 2021, and we did receive the report back at this council officers did in August, and I think there needs to be some urgency placed on next steps. But I do believe that these three recommendations put us in a good position to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Helen. Yeah, thank you. I will support the recommendation, but I do want to comment. Look, I'm really not sure that we're clear about the specifics of what the problem we're trying to solve is and for whom. There's different needs. You've got 8-year-olds to 15-year-olds to 22-year-olds, and you can never, we're not going to solve, provide something to cover all those bases. And so what is the primary need that and problem that we're trying to solve? And it's not clear for me from this report. And I don't want to compete with the new game centre or other services. That's been talked about a little bit in the report, but not a lot of detail. I am concerned at the operating costs when you start to read some of the needs that different youth are talking about. You know, they want a 24-hour centre open, something that's safe. I mean, that's all taking monitoring, so that needs to carefully be considered, especially in terms of rate increases coming our way. And I realise that this is not going to happen straight away, so it's another, it's in the next long-term plan. I want to remind everybody that under the Town Centre Regeneration Plan, there was identified that having a general venue that youth could come in, and that's of all ages, even going up into your 20s and 30s, that provided music, ability to play music, record music, to interact together, art, just about anything really, probably get on computers, was identified, and it's in the Town Centre Regeneration Plan, and actually it was one of the key things that were put up there is this has a massive impact. I mean, that report cost us a lot of money. They were very, very good consultants. And they said, that should be one of the first things you guys should do. It's hugely transformative. Now, some of our community are sort of already doing that, but under Town Centre Regeneration, I think Emma Bugden might even have it on her work plan around creating that sort of space. So there's a lot of synergy there, and I'm hoping that that's been brought into this mix, but I'm not seeing it here because we could be ticking several boxes was one go. And I believe that's been quite a lot of work done there. So on page 28, there's some more work, there's some discussion there about dream spaces and places, which I found really interesting. But look, I'm really worried that we're trying to create something that we have no idea really what it is and no ability to deliver because we're a council. It's not our usual business of interacting with youth. I mean, look at us. Apart from Josh, who's slightly out of the thing, Charlotte, but we're trying to create a space for very young people, not us, and of all all ethnicities and cultures and issues, and I'm really worried about this. Look, I'm just saying we need ground-up support on this. We need this to be a ground-up project rather than a council thing. I mean, we should be looking to help support it. I'm just a little bit worried about where we are, and it's going to cost a lot of money that we're sort of going to helicopter something in and that'll make us feel good, and it might not really get us a lot of outcomes. I'm sorry to put that downer, but we've got to do this right. And I know the team are working on this really hard, and they're passionate, and they get it as much as I do. But I just have to say it. Thank you very much.
Councillor Michael.
Hello. Use spaces and places. I appreciate that I wasn't here when this first came about. I've talked to a lot of you about how important this is, and I totally agree this is very important, but I think this has been done in a weird way. This is a continuous improvement program that's ongoing. It's not something you can just click a fist and pay 400,000 and everyone's happy. And the reason why I say that is because the people you interviewed 2 years ago are now probably adults with different needs. It's going to be continuously improving. So my thing in my mind is it is a current project in motion, so I do agree it should sit here. But it's a bit of a mangled one, personally. It's broad, it's not a laser. It's trying to do everything. I think, as Councillor Helen said, it's trying to do from 8-year-olds to 19-year-olds.
12-year-olds.
12 till 24.
12, 24. 24. So pre-frontal cortex development. Okay, cool. It is high important. I still don't really understand what the measure of success is and how that aligns with our strategy. But I can imagine it will fit. It is in the LTP. I say keep the funding, but I won't be agreeing to these more information. I want to see make this a holistic end goal or objective, and then I want to see laser-focused, sharp business cases on outcomes that come to this council. I want business cases, not information. Yeah, and I want to measure, adapt, and iterate from there, and that's the reason why I can't agree to B or C. Thank you.
B or C. B or C could result in the business cases that you're talking about.
I'm happy to pause a motion for D that I want to see business cases, but it just seems complicated.
Councillor Kate.
Thank you. I think David often talks to us about, David the CE, I mean, talks to us about progress, not perfection. So this is progress. That said, I can appreciate the frustration, given this has been around for so long and it's still not landed anywhere. Although take Michael's point about this is not necessarily a one quick fix or a one fix. It's going to be a continual thing. So I'm happy to support A and B. I think the committee has been very articulate in terms of the urgency that needs to be applied to this. However, I won't support C because actually that's what the chief executive and the chair of this committee should be doing anyway. You know, it's their job to take projects and move them forward, or projects or activity. So it just seems to me to be a little bit bureaucratic. I would expect if C's not passed that it would occur anyway and that we would get progress. I've already heard that in 2 months we'll have a next stage before this committee. So happy to support A and B, and I think would appreciate the recommendations being put separately, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Already my intention, Councillor Kate. Councillor Charlotte.
In regards to Michael's comment,
we don't normally, just as a matter of protocol, refer to each other in the room and personalise, just so that you know. So
thank you.
Colleagues' comment.
In regards to a previous comment.
Good segue.
Ask Lena.
I think that information could be sourced from other regions' business cases. So I do support B. I also think that this project is well within the scope of what council should do, because we have a large amount of rangatahi in our district, and there has been a very consistent call for spaces, places, entertainment support. We also have a large amount of unemployed rangatahi in our district, and I think that this is a fantastic opportunity to create a lot more cohesion between E2E and other youth support workers and sectors. I think that council has a fantastic opportunity to facilitate conversations, and I think that having a solid space, not a movable space personally, is a great anchor to build from, and I do agree that this has to be a constantly moving project, because the needs of rangatahi do change constantly year to year. So I will be supporting all of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be supporting A and B, not C, because I think it's redundant. It's already in place. I did outline a number of groups within the rangatahi that have special needs. This is not a role for council. I totally agree with the concept. I totally agree with putting money aside. I totally agree with doing further research. But when it comes back, I prefer to see council taking a financial role, a supportive role, a spaces role, but not running this. We need to step away from this. This is a very complex area. It's wonderful to say rangatahi. It's wonderful to say that. But the diversity within it and the needs within our rangatahi are so great that this is not our role. And so I'll step back and say, I'm looking forward to what's coming back, but I'm hoping that council will be a financial provider, have a role to play, but not managing this.
And final comment from myself before we put the motion. We've had expressed from our rangatahi for many, probably decades, that there is insufficient facilities for them in Whanganui. And during that period of time, we've had very little stand up from any other organisation who's put forward a location place that's worked out suitably for our rangatahi, that has been safe and educational and entertaining oriented, that has worked. So we've taken a leadership role in this, but this leadership role is not exclusive to us. It's in partnership with our community. So therefore, all those aspects that we're not appropriately able to provide, our local providers, it's already listed in the report, a significant number of organisations that we can and will partner with in the delivery of whatever outcome we come with. We're not predetermining what that is, but we know that we're working with our partners. We are not the ones putting ourselves forward as the knowledge base, and we certainly aren't the right demographic to do that. But that's not what we're doing. We are deliberately seeking information from the right demographic and the right professionals within Whanganui, because it is the youth service deliverers that have also contributed to this report. So we're not doing it in isolation as though we know best. That is definitely not what we're doing. But we also know that it is a dynamic, changing environment, and it's also going to cost. But everything costs, and our youth are an investment in our future, and I think that they are worth the investigation and the work that we're putting in, and I think we just need to get on with it and get to some decisions and actually identify what we're going to do and make it happen, because this has been going on for too long. So on that basis, we're going to put the resolutions separately. A, all those in favour? Against? Carried. B, all those in favour? Against? Michael? Carried. C, all those in favour? Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carried. Thank you very much. And I love a good debate. I think if we don't all agree on everything, that is extremely healthy. And on that basis, I now declare the meeting closed. Sorry? Oh, we have to, sorry. 4-1 leaves. We have to, thank you. Closing Karakia. Closing. Oh, I've got to get my head there now. E oha ki runga ki a ranganui, e oha ki raro ki a papatuanuku. Whakatairanga, te kupu, te kōrero, te mahi, ki te pō o te ware, he tuanga, he mahi a muri. Ka puta ki te wai o ki te au marama, humie, huie, tai kie. I acknowledge, greet those things above, the sky, the universe and the heavens. I acknowledge, greet those things below, the earth in all its entirety. Let's suspend the words, the discussion, debate, negotiations, the work covered to the pillar of the house as a treasure point of importance to be revisited at a later time so we may enter into enlightenment. Let it be bound, fixed, yes, fixed. Let it be agreed by all. Thank you. Meeting now closed.